All right, a fairly interesting panel. We have FMCG, we have automotive, we have fashion, and we have accessories, and there's retailers as well in the conversation. So good to have all of you here, good to have the audience here. I'm pretty glad that we're having this conversation about emerging trends in consumer engagement. Maybe as just a starting point of the conversation, would love to have a simple definition of what consumer engagement in the digital age means for you in your current orgs at different life stages, different goals and KPIs that you're trying to chase with that. So from that lens, I would love to have a simple little definition coming from that. Yeah, Ankit, you want to go first?
So for us, I think there are two lenses we look at, right? So as an FMCG company, one is obviously we have digital commerce, but we also have a lot of our transactions happening offline, predominantly offline more than online, right? And therefore, for us, engagement, again, could be in terms of the performance that we're trying to drive on our e-com platforms, or it could be, and more so, for engaging our consumers and getting them to move through the funnel in terms of the brand building activations that we are trying to do. So those are the two, and then of course the metrics, I think I'll leave that for the others.
Yeah. So myself, Taher, I'll just give you an intro. So I manage the Tata Motors commercial vehicle, so where I'm responsible for digital transformation. So for us, digital transformation or engagement is pretty important because mostly all our customer in commercial, basically trucks, vehicle and all, are mostly offline. So how do we ensure, how do we engage them online, how do we bring them online? That is the most important thing, because our majorly like 80%, 90, 85% transaction happen offline. So yeah, so that is the main definition for us in Tata Motors commercial vehicle basically.
Hi. So I'm going to actually share a different view on customer engagement. I'm not going to get into the typical KPIs that one measures, because eventually every customer is that human whom you're dealing with, right? For a customer with the number of options available, there are multiple choices. What you are selling, whether it is a car, whether it is an FMCG, whether it is fashion or an accessory, there are 20,000 other people selling the same thing. Eventually, your product is important, but what is also important is how do you make your customer feel? And for me, customer centricity and how do you make your customers feel and what is the customer experience you give is equal to engagement. Whether it is online, whether it is offline, whether it is that human engagement, human interaction, or you're creating a specific magical experience for that customer. Because that is what the customer is going to remember. That is what the customer is going to come back to you for. And for which it's very, very important for you to know your customer well. Where data analytics becomes an extremely important part about what the customer is doing with you, how is he engaging, what is that customer's entire journey which is there, and then accordingly using that information to create that magical experience for your customer, whether it is with content, whether it is in person, or whether it is with product. That is customer experience for me, that is customer centricity for me, and this is something that will really help one drive business in the long run. So while a lot of business heads will talk data, but as marketers, it's important for us to even look at the softer aspect of the customer and the customer emotion.
Absolutely. I think it tends to become a left-brain versus right-brain battle, but the same old job, I would imagine, will end up leveraging both sides. Yeah? Jayson, you want to go next?
And that's why there has to be that one customer custodian in every boardroom. Otherwise, it'll always be a data-led number.
Yeah. Kind of hard to sell that sometimes, but sure, I agree with you.
So, being an accessorized London, the consumers have always seen accessorized London as a jewelry or a fashion jewelry brand. What the digital world has helped us is trying to bring out what the brand also stands for different categories. You know? Like we are very much fashion handbags, and we are into kids accessories also. And that has actually helped the digital transformation and the engagement that we tried to make and to ensure the consumer understand the brand, where where their strengths are, and that is reflected in the offline. You know, because we were offline heavy pre-pandemic, and post-pandemic we have seen that most of our consumers, and 80% of our business is coming from handbags, which was reverse. So that kind of has helped us revenue-wise, and that has also helped us that the consumers have a belief in the brand already because we were 15 years in the market. Now the consumers believe that we are a handbags brand as a accessorized London. So that's
Some sort
helped
of
us.
a deeper relationship with consumers and expansion of the nature of that relationship.
Absolutely.
Sure. Biswajit?
Yeah. So I come from Metro Brands Limited, which
I think it would pretty help actually with your historical context as well, because the relationship with CRM and loyalty for you is much longer than Metro, right?
okay. So basically, I predominantly come from the CRM and loyalty background. I have spent good amount of time with Payback Coalition Loyalty Program and seen those loyalty programs closely in India. And then after that, spent some time with Accenture Consulting, where also I spent 3 years in serving different organization across the globe in terms of CRM and loyalty strategy. But coming back to the primary question is that customer engagement definitions for Metro brands, because we house many footwear brands, starting from Metro, Mochi, Crocs, and others. I agree with my co-panelist also that for Metro, it's basically the we don't call ourselves as a footwear business and accessories business. We call it as a experience business. So whatever we offer, it's an experience at the end of the day. So that's why customer centricity is the starting point for all of our engagement. But at the same time, I would like to add one specific point, which is profitable customer experience. We don't want to invest in customer experience, which just in the sake of experience giving to the customers, but it has to be equally profitable to my organization at the end of the day. So that's why we call it as a profitable customer experience, which is the primary center point for all our engagements that we do.
All right, so I think we have a common, largely common ground on the fact that customer engagement is going to be a predominant driver of business, very clearly. So, let's just jump to some of these aspects around trends in this subject. There are lots of shiny new things that keep happening. There is a lot of technology jargon that gets thrown around. And as marketers, I just spoke about the number of marketing tools that are available. It's a very complex stack. So from that lens, in your own journey, you would have experienced some things as like a clear long-term thing to say, vis-a-vis something that you discovered as fads which are there for a bit and then they kind of faded away, right? And you might tactically leverage some of these fads as well, but I'll probably want to just call them out as fads, okay, don't take this way too seriously to become a underlying part of your story, but at the same time, don't dismiss this as fad. Could you help us break this down a little bit to the lens of what's fad and what's long-term in your experience?
So I think we have a simple definition for this, right? If there is a new tech, there is a new solution, can you put a filter on it to say, is it going to help me drive my business, right? Or is it something that you're doing because it's good to do or it's the current flavor of the month, right? And if you are able to justify that, yes, there is a potential to drive ROI for the business, then it's worth a pilot, an experiment. And if that pilot works, then you scale it up. So that for me is the marker, right? So it's a journey to say, yes, there are new shiny objects that are going to come in every now and then. How do you actually take those, evaluate them from your own business point of view, and then almost give it a chance. If there, at initial stage there is some promise, if the promise works out, that's fantastic. Scale it up from there.
I'm going to challenge you a little bit in that because there's always going to be that lens of agility and fear of missing out in a competitive space that all of us operate in. So while of course you want to be thorough with your decision making and do a pilot and scale, do apply that lens of agility and fear or maybe competitive action, and then does it change anything for you? Or would you say that all that's wrong and happening, I'll do it my way?
Yeah, so you're right. I think fundamentally, and I'll talk about Marico, we are known for innovation. So there is always that additional pressure to say that, yes, we want to innovate. But we are also very clear that we don't want to innovate for the heck of innovating, right? So as long as that is up front and clear, I think we are fairly certain that it's not a FOMO that we're going to run behind, right? It's not about saying that, for example, if you have the metaverse, right? And the metaverse is a big thing. Should I therefore deploy on the metaverse because everyone else is going to deploy? No, I think that's the watch out that we call out, right, for ourselves.
How about you, Taher? You've been fairly sophisticated with respect to a lot of tech adoption at Tata Motors, but there are things, and we were just talking about influencers a little bit before, not necessarily relevant for you, but are those things that you've discovered as you played with and you realized that this is not going to work out long term, let's switch away? And how did this work out for you?
Correct. So basically, in Tata Motors, what we are trying to figure it out, because as I told earlier also, like we are not that tech-driven organization,
Sure.
but yeah, we are trying to step. We are trying to do a lot of digital innovation and multiple things. So as a first step, what we had done, as we had discussed earlier, we have created the platform where customer can come, engage, and do the transaction. So what we have realized is you need the assisted sales into this journey. So if there's no assisted sales, the things does not work. So we were able to scale it, so the platform to a particular level. So assisted sale is very important because majorly the deal discussion happens in the truck and this industry offline happens. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to create a lot of engagement through A+ content or a virtual showroom or 3D modeling and all. So that is what we have realized. It's not a very plain kind of the way usual e-commerce work. So you have to be very much
Selling a
innovative.
45 lakh rupee truck.
Yeah,
It
45.
won't work the same way
Yes,
it was
yes.
for
So
us,
it's
right?
not that easy. But yeah, we have seen a very, very good positive response from the customer. But what we are trying to figure it out more, how we can engage the customer more. Because see, what we are trying to do is the first time in the industry, right? So no one has done, no one has tried.
You
So
don't have benchmarks and reference points. But assisted sales, I would imagine, is considered a fair practice because of the nature of the category.
Correct. Assisted sales, so through powered AI, through chatbots and all. So how we can
So
engage
you're
customer.
definitely in the bots bandwagon.
Correct.
You're for
correct,
it, right?
Correct.
You're not
correct.
saying this is a fad, it's going to disappear. I still need a human to talk to somebody. Is that something you're taking stance on?
Yes. So
Okay.
we because there, so what we are doing a lot of multilingual chatbots and all those things because we have the customers in the different regional.
of
Yeah.
course.
So we want to assist through that.
Going bots and going multilingual is here to stay, and you would prefer to.
Yes,
keep that.
because let's say if our customer base is in South, they won't
course.
interact with you in Hindi or English.
Absolutely.
They want to be interacted in basically the regional language. So if you'll see on our platform, we have a lot of multilingual. We have the call center also in that fashion.
So what I hear you say is personalization is something you're willing to take a bet on.
Correct,
You're happy to
correct,
invest in as
correct,
well from
correct,
that lens, right?
correct.
So I heard you chatbots, I heard you language, I heard you personalization.
Yes.
What are the other bets within the same structure in that sense that are definitive parts of your commitment?
Yeah. So another thing which I told is the 3D modeling because what we have realized our customers are not coming to the showroom right now. So most of the customer prefer to be at their because that is the way how the commercial works, right? There are a lot of fleet owners who want to buy 20, 30 vehicles. So they don't want to come. So in unusual practice, our sales team goes over there. So how we can enable the metaverse, 3D modeling, how we can show the customer at their doorstep, and if required, there's a video calling which needs to be done. So those all things we are exploring.
Sure, interesting.
So lot many things we are trying to do, and lot many things we are trying to figure it out in the path what will work or not work. So it's not very simple, straightforward.
Of course.
to
Anything you
sell
figured
any-
is like a shiny new tool fad, but you're not chasing it?
Not really right now. We
Not
are so,
yet, at
no.
least.
So
I'm
we
sure
are
Shwetal comes across a lot of these things, right, all the time. Influencer marketing, for example, was one where there was so much of affiliate link and this and that discovery mechanism, campaign measurement that came in. But not to hijack that from influencer lens, but help us understand, Shwetal, that when you look at things that you're willing to commit to, you spoke pretty centrally about customer experience and customer custodian in the boardroom. But from that lens, when you look at all of this emerging technology, and which of it is definitively a part of your future versus stuff that is tactical and which might not last and you don't want to chase. How do you make that judgment?
So I'll tell you what, I'm going to split this into two parts. One is in terms of what is a trend, how things are changing, and how are really we looking at engaging with customers. There are certain investments as an organization we've already made. We've invested in a data lake, which really helps me understand my customers, right? So one, a definitive which we are really working on, and we have a lot of green shoots on that as well, is using data analytics and content to engage with your customers further. And when I mean data and analytics, a lot of analytical buckets like your market basket analysis, your propensity models, your personas. We've created personas to understand our customers better. Using that to personalize communication. Personalization where the content is also personalized on WhatsApp. 15 million customers getting 15 million personalized content to what their need and their shopping behavior is. And we do that very
You're very
regularly.
committed to the data lake, you're committed to absorbing data to translate content experiences. and
So
personalization
I'll tell you what,
experiences.
all of this is interlinked,
Sure.
right? So these are not like different pieces. Eventually, key mantras personalization, content, and authenticity. These three extremely
Double
important.
click on that authenticity piece, maybe, but I'll come to that in the next round. Because when you're trying to do that at scale and 15 million customers getting 15 million messages, how does it stitch together on the whole authenticity piece? Maybe I'll just double click right away. I'll come to you in a moment. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that tough. It's all about having an intent and cracking it. We have the entire customer data, right from the first day of which shop he's kind of shopped, to the favorite categories, the favorite color, what he's been doing. So all the information is there. The data lake helps us run a lot of analytical buckets. It's all about making sure that you're asking the right questions. I think that's where the marketer's role comes in terms of asking the right questions, right? Eventually, it's garbage in, garbage out.
Sure.
And using this data to then create personalized video content. So there are a lot of technologies which are available to do that, and making sure it's deployed in the right manner. And today with WhatsApp, I think it's very much possible. Today with the custom audience targeting, it's very much possible, right? Because you can really go that personal in terms of content. And this is one way of personalization. Personalization can even go up to your .com pages, to what they see, their interest levels, your notifications, to even a lot of stuff on your social and digital as well, because those are the kind of pieces that you can set up. So for me, personalization is something that we are really chasing after, because personalization will help you create that enhanced customer experience as well.
So it stitches together perfectly, seamlessly for you when you talk about personalization and customer experience. You see that almost in the same light, that this goes without saying that you have to personalize.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. So this is a personalization is across, because eventually imagine if that last mile person, the personal shopper or the cashier, while doing the cashiering, also has that personal data of the customer. The way he addresses the customer is so different, because eventually we Indians are all about a personal touch as well, right?
I absolutely agree.
When I enter a shopper stop and I know that, oh, that personal shopper, Vinita, who works in an XYZ store, knows my taste personally, knows everything about me, there's a different level of trust that we have, right? And then it moves to the next level for my personal shoppers, where you have the customer calling up the personal shopper, telling her, saying that, hey, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be buying for these occasions. Can you help curate? And the personal shopper is curating and keeping it ready. Imagine that last mile experience that you're creating with data at the back end. So it's
And
not
the kind of
always
scale it
SMS,
has to
WhatsApp,
operate
and
can get quite
digital.
messy.
It's also translating all this data analytics and personalization to that end mile customer experience that you're delivering at the store.
And you're able to very clearly see the math in terms of ROI, because what a lot of people tend to want to be convinced about upfront is all of this investment later. What is the business case? You're very convinced that there's a clear
See,
business case.
I'll tell you something. It's very important to look at an ROI. Otherwise, as marketeers, especially passionate marketeers like us, get really, really flowed with so many things that will keep evolving. Like as what he mentioned, when it came to metaverse, there was one time that all of us were tempted of jumping into it, because more than the result, it was more about proving that, hey, we've done it, right? And one has to be very, very careful about that. So, important that prioritize as per what the organization is actually looking forward and what the organization goals are. So, prioritization is very important. Everything need not be an immediate ROI, but as far as your objective and your reason of what you're doing, why you're doing, you're very clear about it, and you know what result you're expecting as far as it's measurable, at least then that's very important, because at some point of time you need to have a backup of where to pull back, right? So when you're deciding to pull back or deciding to figure out whether it's working or not working, whether it's an immediate ROI or whether it is just improving an experience, what you want to achieve out of it. So it needs to be measurable, because at some point of time you'll need to decide whether it is working or not working. So everything need not be an ROI, but yes, it can't be even a loss-making proposition for you. So it's important to have that strong reason of what you're doing and why you're doing. As far as that is aligned, one can go ahead with it.
Sure. So I'm going to double click on the whole pullback example in a bit. Okay, it's working now. Okay, super. So I'm going to double click on this pullback example in a bit. But before that, Jayson, from your lens, how do you manage to choose between what's possibly a definitive here to stay technology change versus something which was, let's say, the flavor of the month, which would change the next month?
Well, for us, being a single brand, for us, we don't just grab the any technologies that's come in and it's okay now. Everyone is doing
But
it.
do apply
let's-
the lens of agility as well along with it, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for us, right now what has worked for us now, AI has been a tool which it has been a fab now, and we would say, and it's we have learned on the hard way that it's an enabler. We thought that AI is gonna come in and we're gonna be just washing our hands and customer engagement, customer retention, everything gonna happen. All the queries will be solved, resolved, and it's a quick action. But that's not the thing, And right now, what
So
we
AI
have
is still
understood-
early days in your impression.
Yes.
Does everybody agree? I'll get to this counter that does anybody have a great deployment of AI yet? But continue, please.
Yeah. So what we have done is we don't want to miss out on any new technologies or the right technology that would come in, but that is something that we see we have enabled, and we see that it is gonna evolve and it is gonna have the right implications. So that is where, and there are certain things where there are multiple things that is coming in, as in augmented reality, which we right now is not been, we're not doing it. We don't want to step into that as of now, because we don't see that there would be something a very different aspect of augmented reality coming in, and today is not the right time for
So you
us
believe
as a
augmented
brand.
reality is still maybe a fad and not convinced
Yes.
that you're not investing in AR
No,
yet.
no.
But what are you investing in and you're committed about?
So right now, what we are investing is in AI. So we have started to invest in AI tools to communicate to the consumers, to give personalization messages, and because as rightly mentioned, in India, personalization is a very
AI to deliver content personalization is one
Absolutely.
use case that you're committed and convinced about that's going
yes,
to work.
absolutely. Yeah. So that's one that we have started, and then slowly and steadily, I think we have been sticking to the core basics when it comes to technology. We're not going to go
Trust me,
over
everyone who comes to sell you technology believes that his stuff is the next basic.
So that's where Accessorize London is right now.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Biswajit, in your lens, what does the whole commitment versus fad look like for you?
So what exactly we are doing internally at Metro Brands, we are very judicious about selecting the technology. Like I said, we spoke informally, before the session, that we follow a culture of MVP, minimum viable product. So first we try to implement a small pilot, try to see that whether it's actually financially viable for you to scale it up, and then we take it forward for the full scale. Because all these generative AI, machine learning, many things you will be you'll be hearing around metaverse and many other technologies, and then blockchain and many other things comes in your way. But the way to invest, that financial decision has to be there to be supported.
I'm going to double click on this a little bit. Shwetal just mentioned about investing in a data lake that she's committed about. And just, in my impression, incremental we're building a data lake, right? If you build one, then you have to get all of the data together to unify it before it's usable. How do you do it incrementally?
Okay, so what exactly we do, so how it happens in our organization is that all our innovations and investments are led by customer. We very closely watch three things. One, it may sound a little different possibly in the new age organizations, but we follow a very traditional way of looking three things. One is the visiting stores. Every single individual is being mandatorily need to visit to the store, nearest store or some stores, to interact with the customer. What is happening around in the terms of trends and expectations with the customer? How it is
So
evolving.
is this saying that you're collecting walk-in information as well in the system?
Not exactly. It's basically how it happens that all individuals, like at the top to bottom, everyone visits stores, interact with select customers during that particular visit, try to capture those insights, come back and assimilate those informations. Second is the voice of customer that we populate every time, because
So you
customer
have
interacts
a
with
sort
us.
of inbound sentiment analysis / raw data coming in from 800 odd stores that you have, with all the people retail front ending are giving you all this feedback.
Okay. For an example, we have so many area managers, so many store managers, so many corporate employees, everybody starts visiting to the store. Now, if you interact with 2 customers every month, so the kind of enough information that you get, it's so rich to understand and predict the futures in terms of what customer is going to, is asking for.
Honestly, there's a lot of signal to noise play as well there. How do you break that up then?
It's currently manual, but it comes in a form of report. We consolidate it. We try to get the information out of it, and at the same time, another part is the voice of customer, because customer interact with us in our call center, different other channels. We disseminate, or we actually try to analyze all this information what the customer reaching to us. That is one part. And the third most important, like everyone agrees, is the data part of it, which customers behavior from the transactions and the other inferences that you get. So the 3 levers of the data that coming to you. Now on top of that, then you start building your your all future innovations in terms of product, in terms of inventory, in terms of your engagements also. So let's say, for example, I can give you a quick example that sometime back we actually have seen. So first of all, footwear has gone from the functional items to a fashion, and now it is moving towards more of a fashion to even further, where it is more of a personalizations. Now even people are looking for footwear which are custom to you, to your need, to your footwear, to your foot, and all those things. Now what is happening that sometime back we found that the voice of customers is actually revealing that our team actually analyzes the certain returns of the product, certain products which are being not after certain times of usage, the customer returns the product. Now think of a situation. Our QC team has analyzed that particular data, that particular footwear, and got the insights back to the system. We are able to analyze by using the data and other technologies and with the human interventions as well, that what that particular customer may going through while they use that particular footwear, in terms of many insights. And that insights led to some incremental business out of it.
Sure. So
that's-
what I hear you say is there's a lot of, let's say, systems or processes in place to collect raw insights or raw data from all of these consumer-facing situations, whether it's people or technology, and there is a system to assimilate all of it, package all of it, translate that into decision-making frameworks.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just to zoom in on this whole aspect of incremental and MVP that you mentioned. Now, all of these are insights which will guide your decision making. But when it comes to investing in technology or investing in some of these tools and technology that are coming in, a lot of it might seem like they can have a large business impact. But that large business impact is a certain, let's say, outcome over a long period of consistent effort and investment, not from a technology choice, but also from a execution and deployment on top of that, right? So one of the things I'm trying to address with this, and all of you guys come from fairly established large organizations. The question of ROI will always remain a central topic on how you invest further. And sometimes it's possible to do incremental, that you can do something small and then build from there. Sometimes some large investments will have to get justified upfront, right? And that's where this whole anything which seems expensive but seems to be worth committing on. And that's where I relate back to fad versus long term. Because what you have conviction on from your lens is what you can drive conviction through the organization. So she spoke pretty, with a lot of confidence around the fact that they need a data lake. There's no two ways about it, because that's a definitive future. If it's expensive, cheap, whatever, doesn't matter. You have to invest where you have to invest, right? And that's what I'm trying to apply the same lens across the other organizations, that from a choice of technology and choice of these things that are coming your way, how do you firm up that conviction? And then how do you navigate internally to make sure that the organization is also on the same page with respect to committing to those things? Because if you've had, let's say, 3 failures in the last 1 year where you took something to them, and I mean, metaverse, a lot of people took to management perhaps, right? And eventually a year later, it didn't kind of pan out the same way. Blockchain was like a super hot topic for a long time, but it didn't pan out the same way. So in some sense, some of these things have come and gone, but some of the things have been here to stay. In your world, what I'm trying to be pinpointing at is, how do you decide what is it that you can, go with and cut out the faff?
For an example, like Shweta talked about the data lake. We have already invested into the
So one
customer
more
data
person
platform.
committed to at least data lake or equivalent.
So we
Yeah.
have already invested into the customer data platform. So all of us.
So customer data platform.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that everybody here is convinced that customer data platform and data lakes are a definitive commitment that you are prepared to make? Yeah. So if anybody yet is in two minds about this, let's make sure that this is out of the way, that this is something you have to make sure you get. Yeah.
So
Okay.
we have invested into the customer data platform now.
Sure. He has a disagreeing point. Please, I welcome disagreements.
No disagreement. I think it's also about your business, the business scale, and what is it finally going to deliver for you. So I don't think it's a silver bullet, right? And the way you said it is scary, right? That there's no two ways about it. There is always another way of looking at it, dependent on the context of your own business, right? So of course, for the organizations that we represent, maybe because of the scale, etc., and the tasks that we have at hand, it might make sense. For smaller organizations who are still on their way to scaling up, it might or might not be absolutely relevant, and one will have to, yeah. See, again, like I said, you'll have to evaluate it from your task point of view. I don't think it's about saying that I have hit a certain scale and therefore now this makes sense for me, right? And linked to that, to your earlier point, right, on what is the right way of proving ROI. I don't think anyone takes a solution which is really large and says, this is my magic bullet, let me try it out, right? Each large solution has smaller pieces to it, right? And even a data lake is actually a means to an end. Finally, you use a data lake to do n number of things that you might have been doing earlier, but would have been far more difficult, right? It could be about using your data across to get to better consumer engagement. It could be about better MMM models, faster throughput on analytics, etc. Right? So it's not to say that the data lake is in itself a new piece that is going to suddenly come and transform your business. It is built up over time to say that, yes, I'm doing n number of things which will get significantly easier or more effective or more efficient if I deploy this tool that can help me do these things better, right? So that's the only thing that I would want to leave behind, right? I don't think there is any one answer to saying that, yes, this solution works or doesn't work. It'll have to be contextual to the business that you're looking at.
I would agree with Ankit in the sense that there is no universal answers, perhaps in some sense, but where people are sitting on the fence in terms of being able to make that decision, it's usually about either timing or scale or size. They're, okay, I'm here now, and in order to take the next leap, is it too early for me to do this, and am I prepared for this? So maybe a good idea for us on that note to delve a little bit on the prep side of things. That when I was talking previously in my session, one of the things we tend to miss across a lot of situations is people's preparedness. Right, so I bought this new shiny piece of technology. I'm paying a license fees to a data lake company for a long period. But in terms of actually putting the entire prep around it together, from a people lens, from a capability lens, that's an area that tends to sometimes get missed. And probably that's where a lot of failure would come in as well. And you use this word pullback once, which I thought might be worth catching up on, because some of you would have had some initiatives that had gotten to, at least in your head, certain level of maturity, certain level of progress, and then you decided to pull back, or it got pulled back for external reasons. Maybe one example of each from each of your worlds would be very interesting here to say that, okay, if this is the path you're going, maybe you to reconsider because, I had this experience and that's why we pulled back. Anything you want to start with, Ankit?
Sure. So we used to have this brand called Therapy. It was an extension on the Parachute portfolio, and the brand was essentially a problem solution brand for hair fall, right? And we did a very interesting consumer engagement piece and this I'm talking about 7-8 years ago, right? So much before ML became the new buzzword. But we actually created a personalized trichology experience, right? So for consumers, we actually got a trichologist and we recorded a set of, I think, about 550, if I'm not wrong, video sequences. And all of these video sequences, they weren't in random order. They were essentially almost multiple parts of a flowchart that we created to mimic parts of a consumer's visit to a trichologist, right? So depending on the responses that the consumer would give, the server would actually throw the next video that would be relevant to that response and then take that conversation forward, right? Now, if you ask me, was it successful? It was wildly successful, right? Because consumers loved the fact that they could get to a trichologist, get personalized advice, and get it whenever they wanted to, right? but there were other variables at play. Now, other parts of the mix didn't pan out the way we wanted them to, and at some point we realized that maybe while the engagement part is working, the product mix is not, and therefore we had to pull that off. So that's one. The product itself, right? So yeah, so that happens. I think the tech might work, the delivery of that tech might work, but the underlying framework for which you build that tech might not. So yeah. Absolutely. You'll have to be agile and you'll have to give up some stuff as you go along, right? If it's not making business sense. So that's really one example that comes to mind.
So in our case, I would like to give a different example, not basically on pulling back, because we are at the stage where we are trying to explore, scale up scale. So we are trying to explore multiple things. So what we have figured out, like there are a lot of customers who wanted to buy services, value-added services online. So, so we are selling trucks online where the customers are coming and booking it. So what we have realized due to multiple chatbots and all, or to the customer verbatim, and they wanted to buy services also online. Services basically include the value-added services, after-sales services, warranty basically. So right now everything is offline. So everything happens manually offline. So we are trying to digitalize thing. So we are at a lot of experimental stage. So we don't have a very right example at this stage where things didn't work. Most of the cases, it's a first mover thing which we are trying to do. Yeah, but the things which we are trying to do is the services. How we can make the services online. So yeah, that was the example from my side.
Early enough for you to not worry about pullbacks. Yes. So too early for you to worry about pullbacks, but sure, all the best with that journey. I mean, the kind of category you're in, if the kind of market you're at, obviously it's a very different place of starting. But go ahead, Shwetal.
So Ankur, I don't wish to get into specific examples.
Sure.
Okay. I choose not to at this point of time. Having said that, when it comes to pullback, whether it is a product, whether it is a new brand, whether it is a catchment experience which is very hyper-local in terms of a collaboration that you're doing, a digital experience, or it's a marketing campaign, or it's an analytical-based campaign, right? At anything that you end up deploying, before you begin, it's very important to kind of have the end objective in mind.
Sure.
And once you have the end objective, then you know that what are those
Metrics.
timelines that where you will end up evaluating what you're doing. Correct? So those milestones are very important for you to put into an evaluation matrix, where you know saying that X investment, X milestone doesn't work, it's still a good enough time for you to either decide. So step one, what can I learn? What can I make changes to make it work?
Sure.
Step two, second milestone, after making changes also if it has not happened, I know what is the kind of loss that I will take care of and where do I need to stop. I think for any kind of piece, that will be very, very important. Now, whether we do it as a timeline experiment or whether it is like a catchment or a one city or a one store experiment, that's very important there.
Sure.
There are certain projects which don't allow you to pull back. Like, for example, an investment in a data lake, there is no pullback, right? I mean, there's an investment that's happened. So there's no other choice but to make it work.
Sure.
At the most, it will require additional investments to make it work, to learn. But not everything you're allowed to pull back. In those situations, as what he rightly said, that it's not about just investing in a data lake. It's all about what will you do with that information. Because most marketers get carried away with data analytics information, but not everybody knows what to do with it. And hence, it's important to be very clear of what is that investment going to get you. So everything is not about ROI, but what are you going to do with it? How is that information going to help? Otherwise, what happens is you spend days and hours and months together to put something together, and it's a great piece of information. It's a good to have information if you don't know how to use it.
Fair enough.
So that's very important to be very sure of what to use it. So my urge is to marketers, don't get carried away with what other organizations and other people are doing. You be sure of what you want to do, what's your end objective, how much your organization can really chew, how much you as a marketer can chew. It's okay to do less, but do it really well and make every penny count.
Sure.
So that's very important. Otherwise, I have seen a lot of people being lost in data. So don't get into that.
This is the unfortunate reality, right? Which is where I think the part that I'd probably pick up from a choices being made more deliberately on the reverse math. That this is the end outcome I'm chasing, and to make that happen, these are the intermittent milestones which must be met intermittently. And in some sense, also the fact that experiments by nature will sometimes fail, and you need to know what's the right stage at which this can still be cut off without pinching, because as a fast-moving organization, you will run experiments which might not always work, and that's okay, right?
Now, I just want to, elaborate on one point. For example, a shop stop. As a brand, we always believed in delivering experiences. The brand was known for experiences, and we would want to continue to making sure that that good experience moves to a magical experience, right? And when it comes to experience, then you work backwards at what information and what would I require to make sure that the brand continues to move ahead in terms of delivering great experiences. So the first step comes in is know your customer well, because till the time you don't know your customer well, how will you deliver? Those days are gone where there are only a few customer base. Today we are sitting on a 9.5 million customers. That's my loyalty base. That's big. I'll soon be around 10 million in another 4 to 5 months. So that's the number that you're talking about. Now, if that is a customer that I need to continuously engage with around 78 to 80% of my sales coming in from these engaged customers, then it's important for me to have a data lake so that I know everything about that customer, right from the last 10 years to predicting what is going to happen to that customer to the coming, the forward 10 years, right? That is going to help me do that experience. There are a lot of things, because the brand is built on experiences, there are a lot of offline pieces that we do. Like for Black Card tier, which is one of my first in tier, we've started delivering experiences which money cannot buy. Now, these are physical experiences, these are in-person experiences. We use data to curate what are the kind of experiences this customer would prefer. We do data to curate who should be attending these experiences and who else to target, who has a potential to get into this. And after attending this experience, or after me spending those 20, 30, 40,000 behind one family, what is the kind of CLTV that I'm able to measure for this customer, whether his buy is happening or not happening. So it's not always about using the data lake in terms of targeting. And I'm talking about experiences right from a golfing to a sailing to a off-road driving to creating a special pujo for them, right? So it's at all places. And all of these, there will be experiments. Now, inviting somebody for a dirt track driving is not going to give me an immediate ROI. So it's very stupid of me if I'm going to introduce these experiences thinking that ye ROI deliver nahi kiya. There will have to be consistency. There, my objective is very different. Objective is not always in terms of delivering ROI. And hence, objective is important. Your milestones of what are the measurabilities in terms of how are you engaging. I'm very clear that I want that customer to come back to me and not drop out of my database. So that is my objective out here, correct?
Sure. So
and the loyalty
you
needs to
mentioned this
improve.
aspect of the end objective, and with this, let's say the off-roading experience that you spoke about, you don't want to measure ROI immediately. That I sent you here, now you have to buy from me more. But there'll be some sort of a mechanism to imagine that of all the people that were taken, and like Amazon does it for Prime, right? The incremental lifetime value of Prime customers versus non-Prime is amazingly better. So in your lens, is that the same framework you will apply that over a long period of time?
Yes, over a long-term period, a Black Card customer, what are his KPIs versus a regular KPI?
Sure.
Those customers who are engaging with us, whether the KPIs are moving behind, because you're against one customer and spending a couple of thousands,
Sure.
which I'm not spending against it. We've started even tagging this money against a family, saying that how often the family is coming back to me, whether the family is dropping off, whether he is renewing his Black Card, because for me, renewals would be important, which will never be an immediate one, but there would be certain KPIs. And then there is a lot of voice of customer that also comes in, because not everything is what data tells you, right? So engaging with customers, talking to customers, getting WhatsApp surveys, having enough channels where they can come back and talk to you really makes a lot of difference.
So in some sense, I heard multiple occurrences of this whole piece of merging the whole analytical data, Excel side of things with the soft information that you're getting, is just first-hand verbatim raw data. In some sense, because without that, you tend to miss out on the next level of insights.
I don't wish to get into details, but there was something that we started off, and obviously after a point of time, the kind of renewal rates were very, very limited in the 10 to 11%. It was easy to say, oh, it's not working, scrap it, right? But we said, no, let's go back and check with customers. What's not working? What are the triggers? What are the barriers? What's not happening? And here is where data doesn't help. Here is where actual engagement, actual interaction, having those in-depth interviews and certain interviews which you end up personally doing with customer really makes a lot of difference, which gives you insights. We made changes and now it's delivering magically.
Sure, I can imagine. You know, in your cases, just to complete on the earlier thread, we started off with this whole pullback thing. If you have anything that you've tried to do in which you thought was interesting, but at some point didn't make sense anymore.
So, so an interesting, insight that, in my previous association, 3 years back, if you say the brands that I have been associated have always been hardcore brick and mortar brands.
Sure.
And 2020, 21 was where the entire technology thing flooded when pandemic struck and everyone wanted to be digitalized because there was no revenue coming in and no one anticipated this kind of a situation. So, and we did the same thing. We took the best of the website platforms. We wanted to go omnichannel because that was a fad, and we wanted to connect all our stores because the stores there was a lot of inventory that was piled up over there. Everything did, and everything was like a piece of cake for us. But ultimately, the wrong thing that we did was we didn't look into our core systems that we already had. That was the entire database where it is like, the 15, 20 years database, it couldn't communicate to the new age of technology and we couldn't pull it back because, we really wanted to do this. And that was what we can do, at that point of time. There was nothing that we wanted to be digitalized. We have to be going all gung-ho with e-commerce and we struggled a lot. So I think that is where we thought that we really need to look back and see what we currently have and whether we really need to innovate over there and then go out in the market and see what new technologies can help and marry with our existing technologies, or else it's never going to work.
Fair enough. And that would kind of condense into the same lens I'd love to pick up next once this finishes, is about preparedness from a people lens, from a data lens, from your current technology lens, from the mindset lens, because, taking a dipstick without the commitment will end up also backfiring. Biswajit, anything that you want to talk about from a pullback lens? I know this is a relatively recent play for you.
In terms of, no, I mean, we don't call it as a pullback because
experiment that didn't turn out the way you would have wanted to.
Because, as part of the CRM and loyalty team, experimentation is our day-to-day activity that we do. And obviously, nobody can say that all the experimentations went well. But from every experimentations, we learn something, and which help us to recalibrate what we did. And like other panelists rightfully talked about that end objective. At our end, we call it as a use case based experimentations. So even if we do any technology investments, we always think about what are the use cases that we want to achieve out of it. So let's say, for example, you create 10 use cases for your organization for next 1 year. Now you prioritize those use cases. And then once you prioritize those use cases, now you focus on for example, this quarter you want to focus on the top 3 use cases that you want to deliver. Now, one of the use cases may require a predictive model to be created on top of your data lake or CDP platform, correct? So now that is one use case led to an investment to a predictive model, and then you experimented with those output out the predictive model with the right content, right communication, right offer, and then you learned whether that actually worked for you or not.
Sure.
That's how the entire cycle works. It's a completely use case led investment for us. That's why we tend to lose lesser, because not too much of investments is required, because we just pick up 2-3 use cases every quarter, and we ensure that at least we succeed in majority of them. Even if we don't succeed, we know where it has actually went wrong.
The cost is not too high. Sure.
But the underlying facts is that customer 360 or enabling technologies, it's definitely be remaining there, will remain there, and over the period of time it needs to be matured also, because on top of those you will be creating your application layers, whether it's a generative AI based chatbot, whether it's any predictive model or personalization at scale, bringing another marketing automation tool, XYZ investments. These are all on top of, these are all application, but base foundation is that understanding your customer, bringing all the customer
The data.
at a single place and finding the right, what you say rightly is that the signals.
Signals.
You need to find those signals. And most importantly, yes, one critical factor for our organization that we look at is incremental sales. So whatever use case that you decide, it has to result into incremental sales. Definitely, that is the
Fair
forefront.
enough.
Otherwise, the investments doesn't make sense for you, for us. So that's how we always. That's why I was coming back to that particular point that we don't say pullback. We say it's
Experiments,
experimentations.
sure.
Many experimentation went wrong. We learned it. We recalibrated it, but we came back succeeded. That's
Absolutely.
how it is all about for us.
Fair enough. So now I won't go in any particular sequence, but the part that I would love to double click a little bit, given that all of you are in leadership positions across the kind of orgs you come from a preparedness lens, and these are large orgs which have been around for 20, 30, 40 years sometimes, and this is a world which is not necessarily familiar at the org level as well. So somewhere the conviction at the top might be there, might not be there, might be somewhere in the middle, but from a preparedness lens that, in order to prepare for the kind of changes you want to drive, at the people level, like you just said, there's no underlying data infrastructure which talks to a modern technology. It's a problem area that needs to be addressed first. So in some sense, could you bullet point 2 or 3 things which on people's side, maybe data infrastructure side, maybe technology, current technology stack side, that you need to bear in mind to be able to take some of these decisions on modern technology stacks, right? So what is the level of preparedness, readiness you have to assess, and how do you make that happen?
Sure. So I think on this one, and people I'll get to, but fundamentally, I think you need to have a structural model that you're going to use to bring that benefit back to the business, right? It could be data lake, it could be CRM, it could be CDP, whatever it is. But what is that model that you're going to deploy to finally get that benefit back to the business? Once you have that in place, if you have at least a projection to say this is my roadmap to getting that ROI back for the business, then you start investing far before the curve, and that's really what will give you confidence, right? Because if you go in unprepared, unstructured, then you're always going to struggle with investing before you can actually justify that investment, be it about people, technology, process, whatever the case may be. So the way to look at it is, do you have a use case? Can you actually build a structure? And can that structure build a roadmap to profitability is a hard word, but at least a roadmap to showing the incremental benefit that it will bring back to the organization in whatever form, and then make the necessary adjustments that you need to, or the investments that you need to for it.
The risk of oversimplifying this would mean some sort of a business plan of sorts where the outcome has a sense of being measured in terms of whatever investments being put in. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so at our case, like mindset wise, or you call it as people wise, we are all in place. But everything starts with an ROI because it's a profitable organization.
Of course.
So,
When the fact that you come from kind of background, you come from all new technology companies, and now you're here, Tata Motors, says something about some of these choices. So, from people readiness, right?
yes, so people readiness, that is what I'm trying to say. Ki people readiness, we are all set, all clear. What management sees is the roadmap, and roadmap to what incremental sales, what profitability it will bring to the table. Not in the short term, but in the long term.
People came before the technology in some sense.
Yes, yes,
Yeah?
yes, yes. Okay. So yeah, that is what it is. So everything starts with the ROI. How it will benefit the customers, which
So
are
the
there.
same lens in terms of making a clear business case on incremental value being delivered.
Correct.
But from a preparedness lens, the people side came in, now the technology which needs a business case to be made, and then perhaps a deployment.
Correct.
But the end outcome, you'll already know that this is what I'm chasing.
Correct.
And I think that's been a bit of a consistent picture here, that be very
Correct.
clear on what the end game is, because otherwise you'll get lost in the maze.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
fair.
end game wise, strategy wise, everything is clear. Now it is how we can execute is faster.
The pieces of the puzzle will keep fitting in.
Yes.
Sure, fair enough.
Yes.
You've had a fairly evolving journey, Shwetal. So in terms of preparedness, on some level, it's also you're already advanced on the curve because the kind of things you use. But to remain consistently ahead of the curve and make the experimental DNA remain, is there something specific that you do from the people lens?
So actually, in all ways, because not just consistency, although we are at a particular stage, but one has to evolve from here as well,
Course.
right? So it's not that you're here and you're just happy with what you have. I mean, the world is evolving, one has to be agile enough to keep
Absolutely.
evolving, right? So I'll take a step back here. I think for any kind of a project or any kind of a thing for an organization to decide on investment, most importantly is that everything that as a management you propose has to be in line with the organization's objective. I think that's very important. Every organization would have laid down the pillars of growth. So if it is in line with the pillars of growth, then it's an easy one for you to get in. The end pillars of growth, end objective, your entire project plan and a business case, the leadership team believing in it, and it's not about just a top guy. There's a leadership team, the CXO team believing in it,
Sure.
because it's all of them have to come together. If the leadership team believes in it, then it's very, very easy for the rest of the organization to support and believe, right?
Fair enough.
And obviously, in terms of investment, it's not just about money; it's also people and their time. The time is limited; people are that much. So whether you want to invest time in something that is going to get you other benefits, or this particular project is what one needs to decide.
Always a hard decision sometimes. yeah.
And what happens is how focused you want to be, correct? Because sometimes if your focus of the organization is something else, certain projects will also deviate you from that focus. So whether you really want to deviate and what is that you want to focus on. As in what I said, less is more, do less, but do it right, do it extremely well. And hence these are certain lenses which are very important, because if your people are going to be moving and focusing on something else, then what are they going to let go?
There's
And
always
how
an opportunity
important is it
cost.
for you let go, or are you going to invest resources from outside? If you're investing resources from outside, then does that project really have that worth to invest that much, keeping the end objective in mind?
Again,
So
the
there are
business case, right,
multiple
in some sense?
parameters where all of these things would come in, which one needs to consider. And once the leadership team believes in it and signs off, then yeah, it's an easy one to take it forward.
Sure, fair enough. Jason, anything from your lens on, you talked about the technology and the data setup that you had, which is like a precursor to a lot of other things you need to do. But with the same thing, and one of the things I've discovered across conversations is a lot of organizations like Metro Brands, if they want to hire a data scientist, it might not be the most aspirational job for somebody to join in that sense, right? So from a people readiness perspective, doing things in-house, building those teams, versus considering some of these things has to be outsourced with partners and finding the right partners, just the readiness part of it. How do you look at it in your world?
Absolutely. I mean, looking someone from from the inside aspect of an organization and deploying it to a specialist. I think especially for brands like us, we are a small organization. We really don't want to get our hands into every individual, aspects of the business, because then what happens is the core business goes off way, because for us product is very important.
Sure.
Ultimately it's all about product. You have the best of the technologies, and if your product is not right, I mean, the game is over.
Fair enough.
And you can do anything, everything in this world and invest everywhere. If the product is not right, it's not going to happen.
So you're in sync on the focus side,
Yes.
clearly.
So our focus has always been on product. So definitely we always have this specialist, be it marketing, digital marketing, performance marketing, or any kind of data analysts that we require. For us, it is beneficial that we give it to the third party and
Third parties, fair enough.
ensure that deliverables are there, because directionally we want to be, we have a direction that we want to go, and directionally if it is right, and ROIs and all those, I mean, we are okay if the ROI is not coming right now, as far as the management knows that directionally the brand and the organization is going
In the right
towards the
direction.
right foot.
Fair.
I think that's all right.
Awesome. So very clear in terms of choosing your core areas, keeping them in-house, but everything else, there's experts around. Fair.
In terms of the people part of it, so as I said at the starting that we are in a business of experience. Footwear is just a matter. It's just
Sure.
a function.
Yeah.
Okay. And now what is happening that in our organization, it's a very people-oriented organization. We believe in a couple of things and we actually implement it and we are driving results out of it. One thing is we ensure that the right upskilling happens at the right at the store level, so that because they are the team which will be offering the experience to the customer. So we don't want to go wrong in that sense. That's why regular upskilling of our store colleagues definitely is the prime
Sure.
objective as part of a people part of it. Also, what happens that strategically we adopted some strategy internally also, that every department, now we call it as a two-pronged strategy. One, is the +1 and second is the upskilling. Now these two things is actually now put it into our BSc also, the balance scorecard.
Sure.
Now what is happening, the interesting part is that the moment you put it upskilling as into part of your balance scorecard, which means that every individual is now bound to take up certification, training, which are relevant and can improve his work. So like for example, the CRM and loyalty team, they need to take up something around customer experience, into some data. Maybe it's a small one, let it be.
Sure.
But let the person take up that particular thing and do certification in a year. Otherwise, you are losing that particular point in your balance scorecard. So that is one of the things that we have
Interesting.
actually implemented. Second thing is that +1 that I was saying. +1 means that what you usually do, what your usual KRA to deliver, you have to do 1 +1. But that +1 has to be innovation led, which means, let me give an example that what happens. In my team, all the individuals are supposed to do external desk research. That's the first thing. And do n number of organizations across the globe, fashion, footwear, doesn't matter. Look at what others are doing. Bring and put it in a single place. Now think of a situation, I lead a team of 15 people. Now every 15 individual, right from the customer experience team to the CRM and to the loyalty, if all individuals start populating that particular spreadsheet, let's say, with one idea every month, which means 15 ideas every month,
Sure.
which means my backlog of ideas are already being generated. Now I just need to pick up, prioritize, like I said sometime back, that prioritization of the use cases, which means my 15 colleagues have already given me 15 ideas. I need to just prioritize it with my business team, along with my business team, with my technology team, because prioritization needs to be investment in terms of business, in terms of internet technology. So the prioritization is also happened. So I need to pick up only 3 things in a quarter, which already been fueled by my colleagues also, so team members only. So that's how it means it's a cycle autonomous. I don't need to look back for an agency to come and appoint for me to give given a strategy.
Sure.
Because I know my people are equipped enough, they are, and at the same time, they are upskilling, which means they know what exactly they need to look at the external also.
I mean, it sounds pretty impressive if you're able to pull off that level of complexity at that level of scale of org. But thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation. I see the time's up and that red screen will start flashing. But at least at a summary level, what I can hopefully assume as a bit of a consensus uniformly is have the end game in mind, have the ROI play, have your business plan in mind before you start playing around. Because otherwise you'll just get lost in the whole maze because there's a lot happening, right? So thank you so much, everyone. I hope this was a reasonably safe consensus outcome. Yeah. Thank you so much.